Good to see you.
Good to see
We're
you.
live. Hello. We're having a mutual admiration society here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my Jenna Blum channel. I didn't even really know I had this. Jenna Blum on Facebook and Jenna Blum author on YouTube. And we are also live on a mighty blaze this evening for a very special Know Your Rights talk for protesters. I am joined here by my very good friend, attorney Drew Lichtenfels, whose real name is William, but we call him Drew around here. Welcome, Drew. Welcome to the Blaze.
Great to see you, Jenna. Great to see you.
World.
Great to see that. Yep. Great to be on the Blaze with you and on YouTube.
Yeah, very excited about this. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for doing something so important when I know you have a lot going on. I'm going to do a quick little commercial for the Blaze for those of you who are watching or who are watching after the live show and watching it back. We are a team of 30 plus creative professional volunteers who started during COVID to link authors and their readers when everybody was sidelined IRL. And we have continued to be a place where you can see your favorite authors and their books without you even having to put on pants and leave your house. And I have been thinking lately that Blaze, you gave us your great trust during the pandemic to let us bring you the authors. You made us a place of trust. You made us a place where people can gather. And in this new era, in the Trump regime, we would still like to be that trusted place of information for you. So whenever you don't know where to go, or you think there's too much information, or there's information overload and it's overwhelming, we are your place of community. We are the place that is going to bring you the people who are trying to preserve democracy. I feel like this is a great personal honor for us. And Drew, you are our first guest toward this end. You're also the first attorney we have had on the show, other than this guy you might have heard of named Scott Turow.
I have heard of Scott. It rings a bell.
Yeah. Ding, right? You and Scott, you're like this. So let me introduce our guest to you this evening, you guys, because I gave you very scant information about Drew. But Drew, you ready for me to read your bio?
That's fine.
Buckle up. You. All right, Drew is a practicing lawyer in Connecticut with extensive experience. Oh my God, that was
that's true too. That's okay. That's okay. As Bill Murray once said, no job is too big, no fee is too big.
Exactly, right? This is the way we think of attorneys. I'm just a lowly writer. I'm like, please take my case on pro bono. He has extensive experience in national security and white-collar criminal defense. Drew is an author and a commentator on law and politics, and he's been on Court TV as well as many radio programs. Last year, his interview regarding how SCOTUS would rule on Colorado's disqualification of Trump won the Connecticut Press Club Award. And his latest publication was for the Syracuse Law Review, which analyzed and critiqued the use of sanctions as a policy tool in national security strategies. And Drew and I have talked a lot about democracy, what democracy requires of us as civilians, what it means to maintain the rule of law, and what to do in practical matters where you might be really scared about all of this and really outraged, as many of us are. Drew is an expert in these matters, and I encourage all of you who are watching to send us your questions as well, because we will pass them on to Drew and he will answer. So thank you for joining us all this evening. And Drew, thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Jenna. It's a real honor to be here. I know you typically have heavyweights and not attorneys like myself who are down in the trenches milling around in the muck, but I'm really honored to be here. And I'm most honored, of course, to be of service to your viewership and to the people who are tuning in, maybe for the first time, maybe who have questions, who have things like that, because this is what we do. This is how it really should be done. And people can check in, people can ask, people can inquire, because many people, while they maybe understand their rights from a television show or a movie, or have had zero impact with the criminal justice system, this is a good time to actually know your rights.
Yeah, right. All I know about my rights is the Miranda rights. And if somebody hasn't read me the Miranda rights and I say, have you read me my Miranda rights? That's about it. And I have been protesting, like many of our viewers. I'm just pulling my questions over. I've been protesting for many years now. I've always been politically active, like many of us have. I've been like a social media warrior, whatever that counts for, right? We're all like blah, blah, blah on social media. But I've had the great privilege of exercising my First Amendment right, going to protests with my megaphone, with my backup megaphone, with my pink hat, with my T-shirt with everybody's names on them, with my dog. And trying to act as a sort of citizen journalist to say, we are here We are doing the thing. We are exercising our rights. Allow me to remind everybody, I was getting a little nerdy about this and kind of choked up when I was writing my questions. What are our First Amendment rights? And the two that popped out the most to me, and I'm abridging here, are the freedom of speech guarantees the right to express oneself and includes the right to criticize the government and advocate for change.
Right.
The freedom of assembly guarantees the right to gather peacefully with others, including for protests, rallies, and other forms of expression. And yet, in the last few weeks, we have seen people walking down the street, going to a meal, being dragged out of their cars, people who are in this country legally with visas, and being imprisoned or being sent to other countries, to prison in other countries without due process. So those of us who've been out there marching around with our cute signs and our pink pea hats and whatever, it's a little unnerving. Why should we even protest? Why should we protest?
It's a primal question. It is a question that's going to be, as of I believe next year, 250 years old, and it's been a fight for 250 years. The reason Americans protest is because they are not being heard, plain and simple. You'll notice that protests generally don't occur when people feel like they are getting what they need from their political system, from their elected officials, from the individuals who are responsible to them for their basics. And one of the basics is consistency and or predictability. One of the basics is not respectability. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute. So looking at why we protest to be heard. We protest to show not just solidarity, but community. Solidarity can happen with an issue, with a person, with an idea, but community happens as what we are doing now, tonight. You and I, and the viewers who are here, the listeners, that's community. And when we act as community, we are sending a very powerful message to the people who are our elected representatives. And in this particular case, some who are not elected at all, that we don't have the tolerance, patience, desire, or need of their particular agenda. And if they don't take that into account, the community begins to build and get larger and larger. So the reason we protest is because, one, we have that right. And like any other right, unless you exercise it, it stays to the side and oftentimes can be forgotten. So we exercise to show our right under the First Amendment. We exercise to show our gift, our ability to be in community with each other. And the third and last thing we exercise our right to protest for is the most important right now, change. We want to affect change. When we go out in the street, yes, it can be fun. It can be a community event. It can feel good. You realize you're not alone. You realize that friends that you never realized, I didn't know this person or that person, whatever, or you meet someone, all of that is great. But we're there for a purpose, and that purpose is to affect a change. So the First Amendment states that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, assembly, the capacity to be heard, both in private and in public. And our Supreme Court decisions have reinforced that over the last 250 years, that Americans have the right to actually go into the streets, to slow down traffic through the volume of the protest, to sit down, to stand up, to shout, to scream, to be heard. That it is a very broad and very expansive right, and it belongs to us. What does not belong is the right of the government to say no in advance or no while you're doing it if time, place, and manner restrictions aren't in place. Meaning that if you're out protesting in public and you're chanting, hell no, we won't go, or whatever it is, A police officer cannot come up acting as the state and say, shut up or I'm going to arrest you. That can't happen. That
Okay.
can't happen. So we're going to get into when things do, but that's really why we should protest. And for me, one of the things I think that's valuable is to remember there are only 535 or so lawmakers in the United States. There are 300 million Americans. Out of those 535, currently maybe 220 in the House are saying the president has the right to do anything he wants. So if we were to look at it and say 220 people right now are directing the lives of 300 million, it seems a bit off. It seems a bit one-sided. It seems a bit all or nothing. And all or nothing is not our democratic process at all. So one of the things that we want to do when we keep in mind why we're protesting, we're really protesting the choices that a couple hundred people are making about several hundred million lives.
Yeah, and some of those people, ideally, they would be our elected representatives. And
Right.
so they would be listening to us to actually enact our wishes. But some of the people who are making the biggest decisions are not our elected representatives at all. And I think that's what we're seeing across the country in terms of the outrage that's being expressed in the increasing number of marches and protests. So walk me through. I mean, I am the person who sees, police car lights in her rearview mirror, automatically assumes that she's going to prison forever, even if I'm not doing anything, So the idea of going to a protest, and every protest I've ever been to, the law enforcement has been fantastic. And I thank them. Like, I go out of my way to thank the BPD. I protest here in Boston, the cradle of the revolution. And I say, thank you for doing this. Thanks for keeping us safe. But the idea of violent protest, of course, is really frightening to me. And so can you walk us through being prepared? I mean, again, many of us are sort of veteran protesters, but maybe I'm not doing this exactly right. Like, what is this sort of checklist that we can take into account before we even leave the house? To see the Dropkick Murphys, yes, they're coming to Boston tomorrow. It's going to be a party. Boston's ready.
Yep. Well, here's the thing. You put your hand on it. First off, law enforcement people, we need to remember something. And I've had 30 years experience being a special public defender. I've had experience with being an attorney for the Congressional Justice Act panel. I've had experience dealing with national security issues. We have experience. We all have our experiences that we take, and we presume that, boy, it's kind of all the same. It's also true of law enforcement. They get up in the morning. They know they got to police a rally. They just want to be able to make it home. And to be honest, in my experience, most police officers who are working in rallies or marches or protests, they don't want you not to get what you came for. They just want to make sure, typically, one, there isn't a bad actor in there who's looking to stir up trouble. Number two, the crowd isn't going to become suddenly unruly and people are going to get physically injured. Or three, they don't want people to essentially create riot, okay, to get riotous in the streets. And we'll get into that in a minute. So you're right. Thank them. It's okay to thank them. They're not there to tell you you're going to jail. That's the last thing they want to do, really, because it's a lot of work to take people to jail. However, we do know that in this current environment, there are things that have happened that are extrajudicial, that are outside of the law, that really are meant to scare us, intimidate us into silence and inaction. You talked about people getting taken off the street, being abducted by ICE. So I'm going to get into what is and what is not a good way to prepare for a march. Okay.
Thank you.
The first way not to do it is not to prepare, to just get up and go out there. You're inviting issues. If you're going to go to a rally and you know the march is going to be large, it's really good to do three things right up front. Number one, contact someone that you know and you trust, and you say, hey, I'm going to be gone at the march from this time to this time. Set parameters. Let people know when you're leaving, when you intend to be back, and have them give you a 30-minute window, and then they check in with you. They call you, they phone you, they knock on your door, or are you back, or are you okay? That's number one. Number two, you want to have important phone numbers, and people write them sometimes on their forearm or on the wrist. The most important phone number is your lawyer. If you are going to be active and you're going to be speaking and you're going to be involved, or if you're just going to be marching and you're going to be walking, you're going to do so, have your lawyer's number there, or have
On
a
your
number.
arm, like on a
You
Sharpie,
got it.
right?
You got it. Put it right on your arm with a Sharpie, or memorize it. And then make sure that you have that person, if it's not their lawyer, knows who your lawyer is, who can get hold of them, right? Or if it is your lawyer, make sure that your lawyer, talk to them beforehand, can put up bond if you get arrested. Okay, so that's number two. Number three is, and we're going to get into this in some detail, is your cell phone. Your cell phone is an instrument that is really kind of the focus of law enforcement in many ways. And because most people aren't going to go out there and start throwing hands or rocks or stones and things like that, you got it. The police are looking at cell phones. They're looking at, are you taking video of things that are happening? Are you interfering with them? But before we get into that, let's talk for a minute just about cell phone hygiene. What you got to do when you're doing that. The very first thing that I would do and recommend to your viewers is log out of every single social media platform before you go.
Why?
Okay? Because they can track you. Those social media platforms can be really rich sources of data and information about your whereabouts, where you were, what you were doing, who you were with. Log out of those entirely. That if you have any belief that you think that police are going to be looking at you, or any of that, log off your social media before you leave. That's number one. Number two, back up all your data. Back up everything. Make sure it's all where you need it to be, whether it's in the cloud, whether it's on a separate drive, what have you. Make sure everything is backed up. Number three, how when you're using your phone, if you have an iPhone or an Android, and you kind of push up a little bit and it shows you all the open screens that you've been working on, kill them. Because if your cell phone is taken from you and you happen to have been taking a picture, that's what they're going to do. They're going to click up. They're going to see all the screens, where you were, what you were doing, who you were talking to, all of that stuff. Okay? That's all gone. And the third, if you really want to be safe, and I'm most familiar with this because I have one, is an iPhone, is to go into something called lockdown mode. Lockdown mode is going to, you can go into systems and settings and activate lockdown mode. And what it does is it turns off your signal so that you can't get stingrayed and you can't be tracked. Okay?
Oh, I see it. Okay. So even I can do this, you guys. Like, I just went into settings, like legit blonde chick here looking at her phone, okay, go into lockdown mode. If you go into settings, pull down your search bar and type in lockdown mode, Viola, it pops right up. I did not even know that was a thing. That's worth the price of admission right there. Thank you, Drew.
There you go. You got it.
What is a stingray? Yeah, this is one of my producers. Like, what is getting stingray? Okay, what does this mean?
So stingray is a term of art, I guess you'd call it. Stingrays are actual how to describe it. It's basically simulators. It's a cell phone simulator site that allows your cell phone to connect to it, and then you can be tracked through it.
Oh.
Law enforcement uses that. Spies use that. They can put malware on your phone, blah, blah, blah. So it's a fairly sophisticated thing. And what ICE does, what the FBI do, ATF, is they come to an event. They have stingrays set up in a van. So they're able to log into people's phones, because people have their phones open and operating and emitting a signal. And what your cell phone does is it jumps from cell tower to cell tower. Well, a stingray is basically a cell site simulator, and it jumps and grabs onto that. Usually it's a 2G, and most phones won't support 2G anymore. Most phones will only support 4G and up. But once they grab that, they've got it, and they're in your phone. So
Whoa.
lockdown prevents that. Okay, lockdown prevents that. It also prevents some usage of the phone, but I think it's safer that way. Go ahead. I'm
This was
sorry.
my question. Thank you. No, it's okay. This is great. I feel like I'm in school. So I'm like, Drew, I have a question. And guys, remember, if you have questions, please let them know, like put them in the chat, because we'll pop them up on the screen for Drew. Yes, he is drinking rosé, because rosé all day, and like happy Friday. Like, it's up, y'all. I'm going to drink
Cranberry and water, but we'll get there.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, so my question is, for somebody like me who goes to marches,
Right.
to be a warm body, to participate
Right.
in the community, as we talked about before, which is PS a great underminer of fascism. Fascism hates
Yep.
community.
Yes, it does.
And also just to, again, like I think of myself as a sort of citizen journalist. I have a little bit of a platform, and I like to show people who maybe can't get to the marches, like this is happening in the world. Does lockdown and like having good iPhone hygiene or cell phone hygiene, does that prevent you from documenting?
You can document from your screen tab, okay, but you're not going to be able to use your phone to call or use Signal to text and things like that. So if you're not particularly worried about being tracked, or you're not particularly worried about your location, you're just going from your home to the march, and then you're coming back. What I recommend is to have Signal. Now, we've all heard about Signal recently, and it is an end-to-end, highly encrypted personal communication application, and there is something called a disappearing function on that. So if you're chatting with your group and the people that you're going with, and you got it. You can put disappearing on your Signal, and several minutes or seconds or what have you after you send that it disappears. Okay, so that none of your communications, even if the police have Celebrate, which is a forced cell phone entry app that it basically goes in and tries every conceivable logarithmic number for your passcode until it breaks it open, and then it lets them in. Even if they get in, they look at Signal, there's nothing there. So that's something, if you are organizing a group and your group is going to be present and you're all talking, use Signal is what I say. And that's another thing, just to prepare, go with others. If you can't go with others when you get there, introduce yourself to someone and say, do you guys mind if I walk with you? I feel more comfortable. I feel safer if I'm there. Most people are going to say, sure, walk along with us. Okay. So you want to be with others. And if you're communicating, I suggest that at all marches, at all protests, communicate through Signal rather than text.
Can you, if you're on lockdown mode, can you still use Signal to communicate with your people?
Typically not. So what lockdown does is lockdown makes your phone anonymous. You can't be tracked. Okay. So if you're using Signal, that's fine. There are because if you need to chat with people and do things, that's great. You can always turn on lockdown at any point. If you've already communicated with folks and you know they're coming in 15 minutes and they're going to be on Arlington, the corner of Arlington and Beacon, or Arlington and Comm Ave, great. Okay, boom. And I'm in lockdown, and I can still video, I can take pictures, but I'm not receiving calls. I'm not emitting data. Okay.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. So my friend Casey, hi Casey. It's so good to see you. Casey protests with me. She also took care of my dog Woodrow. She takes care of my dog Henry. She is the bomb. Hi, Casey. Can you just turn off your phone while at a protest instead of logging everything out?
Sure. So here's the safest. It's really, really complicated. It's really, really difficult. A lot of people are going to have. So just try and follow along with me. Leave it home.
How do we take pictures though in our cute hats?
It's unbelievable. It's so complicated. It's brutal. I mean, it's new math for sure. Leave it home. If you don't need, you can use other people's pictures, video, or whatever you want to do. Great, just leave it home. But
Right. Or put a
still
burner.
tell people I will be back in my home, in my apartment, in my friend's place at this time. Have people check up on you, because if you leave your phone home and you are arrested, you're going to have to wait to make your phone call. You're going to have to do all that. So a lot of people feel more comfortable having a phone. There's a second thing you can do. If you intend to be active, you know there's going to be a lot of people. You think, gee, this could get a little bit tight. Go buy a burner phone.
Yeah.
Leave your phone down. Text all your people the day before, the night before, the afternoon before. Say, this is my new number. Only use this number. Take that burner to the thing, video, photo, upload it as you go along. Boom, 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 up into your thing. Bang, bang, bang. Okay, they take it. Doesn't matter.
You have
The
an
next day,
activist phone. It's like a special like bat phone, but for activism.
That's exactly right.
Right. And now we get to go shopping, you guys. We can go buy burner phones. This is
Right.
like, where does one buy? This is a great question. Where does one buy a burner phone besides a crime time novel? I mean, the last time I saw
Burner phone, you can be picked up at Target, at Walmart, at just about any. You can order it from Amazon overnight to you, but mostly any of the larger utility department stores will have burner phones. Any place that sells cell phones typically also sell burner phones.
This is great. I think I knew this from writing a thriller, and also I think you can get them at CVS, which like right
You
after
can get
you finish
CVS.
that, so you
Right.
get a
Yep.
burner. They're pretty accessible, y'all. So we can all have our activist bat phones to call each other. That will be
Yep.
great. Okay, so go with others, make a plan, go with others, have somebody's number on your arm, either a friend who
Right.
can call an attorney or an attorney number. Bring a burner phone, or make your phone safe to go. I have
Right.
a sort of an adjacent question to the phone safety issue.
Sure.
For regular old civilians, it's like little old people like me. Like, how worried do we need to be about being stingrayed? I just love to say that. How worried should we be?
Like Stingray. How worried? I think again. It's always what a criminal defense lawyer will always tell you is you never want to be the guy who's in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because that's tough. So if you're marching adjacent to people who are wearing facial covering, who are dressed completely anonymously, no insignia, no nothing. They all blend together. That's also something that you can do, by the way, if you are concerned about being targeted or seen, surveilled by cameras or by others, is dress in flat neutrals or flat darks and wear a hat. A lot of people wear coverings. Now, if you recall, some years ago, a few years back, oh my God, you can't, no, it can wear a mask. It's awful. The mask wearing is terrible. And now it's, no, we're not going to let you wear a mask. You can't wear a mask, right? All of
Right.
that stuff, right? So here's the thing. If you feel like you are going to be kind of on your own and you're doing things, and the vast majority of people are this way, you've got very little to worry about being stingrayed. If you are with an organization that has a particular agenda that has in the past interacted with the criminal justice system in one shape or form, if you are adjacent to those in the march who are agitating or are involved with direct communication with police officers, with security, then you're at a more heightened risk of being looked at, because those surveillance techniques are going to be trained on those folks. But the ordinary person is going to get up and go with 4 or 5 friends and march and carry a sign. Very little.
Okay,
Very
that's
little.
it. Because I know, like, I have a very active imagination being a writer, and there are rumors online, of course, that people are afraid to put anything online or anywhere. Or the first march I went to after the inauguration, people were scared to go because they thought there would be agitators, but also that AI is going to be scanning people's social and scanning their faces and looking for,
Well, they're
people
not wrong, Jenna.
in
They're
trouble.
not wrong.
So
That
how worried?
technology is used. That technology is used with impunity by law enforcement, especially in mass gatherings, because they may not be scanning to see if you're a criminal. They're scanning to get your data and then log it. log it in. So they have your face, they have all of that. So yeah, that we're moving in that direction. Privacy is a premium. It's really something. So I know a lot of people who are regular folks who will simply wear a bandana around this part of their face and they walk.
Okay.
And because they don't want to give away the whole thing. You can do the same thing with a baseball cap. You can shield yourself if you're like me and you used to have covering and you no longer do. I think I stretched the algorithm a little bit too much because they don't know where I stop washing my face. But the deal is, yeah, you're going to get scanned. Facial recognition is going to be used not just to determine if you're a criminal, but really to pull your information into the database. So those people aren't wrong. The issue of, am I going to? And you said something, and I just want to jump on that for a quick second. Don't be afraid, because that's the whole point. That's the whole point. The muscle you want to exercise most is the muscle that says, I can do this. Because it is the fear that stalls people. They snatch people off the street, and the people they identify, they want their team of folks to say, yeah, well, that person was a no good Nick. We don't like the way they dress. We don't like the way they look. So they must have done something, and there you go. They take somebody that people aren't going to feel real sympathetic toward, and they move them. And all of a sudden, everybody goes, oh my goodness, if that happened to them, it could happen to you. And then the person who is being reasonable saying, gee, I don't like the fact they did that. As soon as they hear it could happen to you, they go, yeah, I'm out. I don't need that stress in my life. This is why Americans are different. Because we go, yeah, I get that you want me to be intimidated. But see, my great-grandparents, my grandparents, my parents, my great-great-great-great-parents were not intimidated by the open ocean. We're not intimidated by war. We're not intimidated by their poverty. We're not intimidated by their inability to speak the language. They showed up and they did what they knew was right for themselves. And that's why America stands, and the United States stands as a beacon for so many people, for so many, because we are the stewards of their intention, and we are the beneficiaries of their expression, and we are the strength that supports the next generation. And that's why being afraid is exactly what people want you to be. And that's the tip off right in front of you. Oh, I'm doing the opposite. I'm not going to be afraid of you. I'm going to walk out. Now, oh, we're going to get you. Yeah. There's 300 million of us. Come get us.
I feel like that should have had a soundtrack. That was like a beautiful, beautiful, reassuring thing to say. And I have been saying for years, when I was out on the road with my first book, which was about the rise of fascism in Nazi Germany, responding to people who said, could this ever happen here? And I said, of course it can happen here. It can happen anywhere there are people, greedy people, venal people, people who are afraid. But I have always said that the thing that separates America, in my mind, from the Germans of 1920s and 1930s is culturally, we are founded on disobedience. Like, we disobeyed our king. We moved across the ocean to be free. We are the people who are just like, va fangul, or, like, we don't walk in the crosswalk, If I have somebody like honking at me, I'm just like, what are you, motherfucker, Yep. So, we have that going for us. We have that pugnacious attitude. And I think what you said also reminds me of Timothy Snyder and his rules on tyranny. The rules of disobeying tyranny or breaking down tyranny. One of them is do not obey in advance. And
that's
so
the first
not being afraid.
That's the first one. Don't obey in advance.
Do not.
And that's it. It always reminds me of that lovely scene in a movie that's very underappreciated. It's called Moscow on the Hudson. It's with Robin Williams. And he's in New York, and a woman complains, or a person complains on the street that he's doing something. Well, and the cop looks at her and goes, lady, it's New York. He can do whatever he wants. That's the mentality that our country has cultivated, that we can get out there and do what we need to do. The whole point of this is respectability. I talked about that when we just opened, and I said, we have to have integrity. It's about these things. But what it's not about is respectability. None of our forebears were respectable. None of them. If they were, they would have stayed there. But what they're doing now is they're saying to people like Paul Weiss, you're a law firm. You need to be respectable. You need to watch it so that you can keep that money flowing in and you can be respectable with your huge clients. And Paul Weiss said, yes, we need to be respectable. Nope, wrong answer. Moving on. And they do the same with the universities. They did the same with Columbia. They did the same with other law firms. They want you to be respectable.
Yeah.
And that is another word for shut up.
Yeah. We had a great question in the comments from our friend Mark Cecil, who does the Thoughtful Bro show on the Blaze, about that very thing. And I know we're departing a little bit from the protest etiquette, and I want to get back to that. But Mark has a question that asks directly about this. What is your take on Trump's shakedowns of the law firms? Are you surprised that they're cutting deals? If it's judged as unconstitutional later, will some of those firms unwind the deals they cut? Which is a really great question. Guys, I think you should all get your butt pillows, get your drinks, just get your popcorn, sit here. We are covering some really good, important stuff here tonight.
Well, first, thanks, Mark, for that question. The big answer is I don't know. I can't speak for a partnership, but what I can say is this. What they showed was a complete lack of courage and spine, and they were an enormous disappointment to the law community at large. Skadden, Paul Weiss, they chose these people specifically with particularity because they wanted to send a message. We can take the heads off of the biggest firms in the world. And this is what mob mentality is. Mm-hmm. They go to the top and they say, I can decimate the top. But it's not the top that works. Paul Weiss isn't a big law firm because it has the name Paul Weiss. It is a big law firm because they have huge clients. And if those clients determine that bending the knee to the government compromises their capacity to have attorney-client privilege secure, have their secrets secure, have their data and information secure, they're out of there. And if they leave, that firm breaks up. So with respect to, is it going to unwind? Is it not going to unwind? That firm entered into that agreement knowingly, advisedly. They certainly had good lawyers, and they did what they did. That's why there is no apology available to them. What they did, they have to own. Every single institution that bends the knee to that kind of pressure is doing so voluntarily. They are obeying in advance. Yes. They are doing it, and they do not have recourse to, hey, we didn't know, or, we did that. No. If you notice, when Paul Weiss did this, they had an immediate editorial in the New York Times talking about what they had done and why this was necessary. It was all sham. It was all a sham. They want to make things more complicated. Albert Einstein said, make things simple, not simpler. Mm-hmm. And the simple truth is, they knew they had one of two directions to go. They chose the direction of compliance with an authoritarian power play, with a shakedown. Plain and simple. I know what a shakedown is. I've defended the guys who invented it. All right. That was a shakedown. Plain and simple. And they said, sure, here's $100 million for your right-wing pro bono stuff. That's the way it is. If it's going to be unwound, I don't know. Would they unwind it? I don't know. But what I can tell you is they made a choice that is substantially different than choices of many, many of the lawyers that I have worked with and have known in my career. You fight. That's what you do. You fight. And they didn't. They lined up and said, yep, thank you, sir. May I have another?
God bless you, Drew. Don't take the VIG is the answer to that. I was walking in the woods with some friends earlier today talking about this very thing and talking about the universities. One of my friends works for Harvard, and she just received the list from the government of all the things that Harvard needs to do in order to keep their funding. And she read me the list while I was walking with my dog in the woods. It was outrageous.
Don't use any names. Don't use any names.
I absolutely will not do that. But I was like, this is astonishing. And it is, we're watching institutions, beloved institutions, venerated institutions obey and advance. And none of us who witness this, and it's important to remember being a witness is powerful work as well. None of us who witness this will forget it in our lifetimes.
No,
so
no,
Mark,
not at all. And this is why we need to remember when someone says to us, look what happened to so-and-so, that could happen to you. It's a lie. It's a lie. That is an invitation to obey in advance. Okay. When someone says that to you. Now, if you're looking at people jumping off a cliff and someone says to you, hey, you jump, you're going to be just like them. Well, that's different. That's an observable fact. But there is nothing here. We want, oh, you're going to take all our funding away? If I was advising Harvard, I would say, let's get in the fight because we have $400 billion in our endowment, and I think we'll survive. But they were respectable. They sought respectability. They like having that number there. They like having that name on their head right above their school. They like having it on their letterhead. They sought respectability. They didn't think that they were molding people and influencing the lives of children. They thought about themselves first. And that is not the way to win.
Mm-hmm. So many things, excuse me, I could say in response to this. The first is, if protest is about not being respectable, I win because I can always do that. And it's much more fun to not be respectable. Like, who wants to be respectable? That's just not the way to go. But another question that I have is, what if, I mean, because again, I'm a writer, so I'm always going to play the what if game, right? Like, what if I'm looking at the student who was yanked off the street and thinking about the Martin Niemöller quote about, like, first they came for the Jews and I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for the Catholics and I didn't speak up. And then I didn't speak up. And then there was nobody left when they came for me. So I'm watching this with
There are
horror.
different ways of doing something. Yep. There are different ways of doing something. What you're talking about is, should I physically interfere? And what I can tell you is that is a personal choice. It has absolute, direct, and serious consequences, but it is a personal choice. There are other ways to do it, and you put your hand on one, which is be a witness. Right. Being a witness is a powerful thing. A witness who will not shut up and be silenced is you basically then become that person, even though that person has been removed. Right. You take their place in public. Right. That's doing something very important.
And I guess the question is, like,
be quiet. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the question is, so could that, if you extrapolate this out and extrapolate out the Niemöller quote and say that is not going to happen to me, but it is going to happen to me because eventually it will happen to all of us, right? Is that it will happen to all of us if we are compliant, but it will not happen to all of us if we speak out. It's kind of what you're saying, like being a witness, being a denshosha, as the Japanese say, being a transmitter of somebody else's experience when they can no longer do it for themselves. Yes. If we don't obey in advance, it's not going to happen to everybody. But if we do obey in advance, it will happen to all of us.
That's correct. We line up. Power is never grabbed by authoritarians. It's freely given.
Yeah.
Paul Weiss didn't suffer any difficulty. They just gave it. Mm-hmm. Okay. If you look at these other firms that are fighting it, well, the media, different than the news, the media won't cover that. Right? We don't want you to know that there's somebody out there telling us to go, crap in our hat, right? They don't want you to know that there's actually someone out there saying no, because no is contagious. Right. Courage is contagious, just as fear is. So when you go out there and you say no, You aren't just saying no to one person. You're saying yes to community. You're saying, I can be trusted. I'm here. Trust me because I am here with you now.
Yeah.
It's an important implicit strength, but the saying no, that's really what they don't want to hear. They don't want you to say no because somebody else is going to go, well, if that really, pretty smart lady can say no out in the street, I can say no.
Mm-hmm.
I can
I love
absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. So, and I think it's one of the reasons so many of us do protest is to reassure each other, like, we are here.
Yeah.
I sometimes think walking around Boston has great signs. The people are smart. They're very funny. As soon as something bad happens, we saw this in 2016 with the Muslim ban, with the children in the cages, with all the other outrageous shit the Trump administration was doing during their first 4 years. Like, as soon as something happened, everybody's running out to the common with their signs. I live 2 blocks from the common. I always run out with the signs, and they're great. And then I think, what are we actually doing? And you're making me feel a lot better about the fact that we are giving each other courage. We may be giving courage to people at home, people in the red states who aren't sitting in the deep blue bubble I'm in right now, saying we are out here doing this. I sometimes think, and I said today in the woods too, like, would I die for my country? I don't know. But would I die protecting what is right? Yes. And I think what we're seeing right now is this moral meltdown that a lot of us saw coming and felt helpless to do anything about, but we all try in our own little ways. So let's say that we are all at the marches together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and because we were talking about what to do beforehand,
Right.
what are some of the circumstances that you could see in which we need to, as a couple of professors from Ohio said, shut the fuck up, like, just shut up. But like how do we protect ourselves in these instances?
So when you're at it, right, when you're at a march, it's number one, it's good to be hydrated, okay, because it's going to be a long day. You're going to be moving, you're going to be talking. So have some gum, have some water, have a couple of those, goo packets that marathoners use. That's always a good thing. Okay, so make yourself comfortable. In other words.
This is good. Oh, we've lost you for a second.
Make a plan when you're there. If one of us gets grabbed, if one of us is pulled aside, whether it's by other protesters or by law enforcement, whatever, who's going to be my witness? Who's going to observe for me? Okay. And that's a big thing, right? So if something happens and you're pulled aside, know who the person is that's going to turn the phone on and film and say, I'm filming this. Okay. And one of the things that I help teach people to do is, if you have someone and you are in that position and you're being filmed and another law enforcement person says, I want that camera, you've got a couple options. If you have a group and the group knows, that camera gets handed to someone who then disappears into the crowd. Boom, immediately, and the camera is gone. Camera's gone. Well, that gets you to stop filming, but it also secures the device. So I think the best solution is, if you're going and you want to be safe, is go with people, stay hydrated, be healthy, be aware. The third, stay calm. Stay calm. Don't allow the emotion of your purpose to become an impulsive driver in the event that things get a little bit tight. Okay. And what I mean by that is, you're yelling, you're chanting, you're singing, you're doing a lot of things, and then bang, something happens and all that emotion is up. Remember, you didn't do this. Calm. You're safe. Calm. You are not in the wrong. Calm. Remember that police officers have to identify themselves as police officers. And you can see them, if, Boston Police or whatever. A plainclothes individual is not going to be there arresting folks. They might be there in conjunction with uniformed officers, but they're not going to be pulling people out, plainclothes people. Okay. Somebody who's plainclothes, who isn't identifying themselves as law enforcement, or as simply verbally said they're law enforcement, those people can be resisted physically. Someone puts your hands on you, they don't have indicia of law enforcement. They say they are law enforcement, but they refuse to show you any ID. resist them physically because those people are malefactors. Okay. Basic police are going to say, hey, guys, get off the sidewalk, get off the sidewalk. I got kids walking up here, or I got somebody with a stroller and they want to get by. Get off the sidewalk. Will you do me a favor? Get off the. That's really all that's going on there. So you comply. It's okay because you're there to extend your day. You're there to have your voice have the biggest scope it can have. Because if you're arrested, your day's over, right? Your day's over. And it's gotta continue on different things. So that's the final thing is be calm and comply. Okay, just go along. Just go. If the cop says, "Hey, I need you off the sidewalk," is it unconstitutional to be? Yeah, but guess what? I'm going to move around and let them. It's fine. It doesn't hurt anybody. I'm still out here doing it. Okay, that's the whole thing. So know that you're in the right. You're safe, and you're with people hopefully, and you're going to be okay because you're complying. Which brings us to, and I want to try and get this because I know you told me it's an hour and we've got just a little bit left of time here, but I wanted to just talk about interaction with police because a lot of people are very frightened. They're very scared. People are being abducted. People are being removed. There's a high degree of anxiety around these things. The rules haven't changed. Okay. That's number one. The rules are the same as they were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 15 years ago. They're pretty much the same. I'm not trying to give legal advice in every state. I can't do that. This is not legal advice, okay? But what it is a general primer of what federal law is, and here we go. Number one, you have the right to be out there. If you're not throwing stuff and kicking people and boozing and running around like, you have the right to be out there, sing your song, chant your chant, raise your sign, walk, run, do whatever. You have that right. Okay. That hasn't changed. They cannot change that by tomorrow. Can't be done. Okay. You have a cell phone on you. You have ID on you. All right. In most states, it's legitimate for an officer to say, hey, I need to see you for a while. Can I see some ID? All right. You have the right to say, officer, what is this in regard to?
Okay.
They say, I just want to see some ID. Fine. Here's my ID. Show them your driver's license. Do not bring your passport. If your passport is your only ID, my advice is stay home. Do not bring your passport. You show the ID of officer. Okay, fine. Go get out of here. It's important to know what your rights are once an officer says, hey, I need you to stop. I want to talk to you or come here. You got to know what you're being asked. I need to see your ID is different than may I see your ID?
Okay.
I need to see your ID as an order, which you should not refuse. May I see your ID as a request? And you can have the right to say, I don't feel comfortable showing you my ID right now.
Okay.
Okay. But a lot of people aren't going to be able to hear that and do that quickly. So if you want to show your ID, fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question. What if you hand over your ID obligingly because you just want to be a good puppy or whatever, and then they keep it? Can they do that?
No, they cannot. But if that happened, you take the badge number of the police officer, you ask for the police officer's name, you record where you are, what you're doing, and you call 911.
Okay.
And you say because you're calling 911 because it is an emergency. You have been stripped of identification and you are at a public event. Okay. All right. But you're also creating a record. Officer so-and-so of the Boston, Albuquerque, Miami, Chicago, Hartford, they took my ID and would not return it. I'm not under arrest. They just took my ID and left. Okay. You're creating that record.
Okay. That's really important. Thank you. And I just want to interject here also. People, bring a Sharpie pen with you to a rally. Like, just bring a Sharpie, because if you have your phone taken away or you have other recording stuff taken away from you and you need to write down a badge number and the guy takes your ID and disappears, like, just bring a Sharpie in your pocket. I always do this. It's cool.
Now, here's something else that may frighten people, but it's important to know.
Okay.
The police don't have the obligation to tell you the truth.
Okay.
They don't have the obligation to truthfully respond to you. So asking them questions is kind of pointless, in my opinion. They do have an obligation to tell you their badge number. Officer, can I please have your badge number? And they have to give you the badge number. Okay. But asking them, hey, officer, why are you stopping me? That's a legitimate question. Or, well, officer, am I detained? That's a legitimate question. These are questions that they must answer, but they don't. You'll find many times in our line of work, many times they'll overstate what's going on. Well, we think you've been, disrupting, or you've been this, or we gave an order, and blah, blah, blah. An order to disperse is a very specific thing. You had to have heard it. You had to have heard it. Okay. And if you didn't hear it, and the officer saying, yeah, I'm stopping you because there was an order to disperse, and you didn't, you say, great, I'm out of here. See ya. Thanks. Bye. I'm complying.
Okay.
I'm complying. If the order is real and you just told me and I just heard it, you say, I respect your authority. I did not hear it. I'm leaving now.
Okay.
A legitimate 90% of the time, that officer is going to say, okay, see ya. And they're going to move on to the next person that they need to move. All right.
Yeah.
But those are times when your rights begin to change. You are no longer a protester with First Amendment rights. You are now a person with Fourth Amendment rights. You have the right. They can pat you down through your clothes, but they can't do anything more than that. And they have to have probable cause to do these things. Okay. So in that situation where you are stopped, you can ask, am I being detained? What's the charge? All right. But it gets very simple after that. If the officer says, yes, you are being detained, then you say, I do not consent to a search of my person or my phone. I decline to answer any questions until I have a lawyer present. And then you stop. And this is really hard for people. I don't know why it's hard for people sometimes, but it just is. Shut up.
Okay.
Just shut up. You've given them your name. You've told them that you don't consent to a personal search, okay? So they can't go in your pockets or anything. Even if they tell you, and they're the nicest people in the world, they're not being nice. They're not being good. If they've detained you and stopped you, you have exited that First Amendment bubble, and you are now in a Fourth Amendment bubble.
Okay. So
Okay?
what are the circumstances under which you can be lawfully detained? Like if you're resisting an officer, if you're saying like, I heard you, but I am a protester who's marching down I-90 to block traffic. That is the goal of our march today, blah, 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 right? Mm-hmm. That, and so I refuse to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep doing the thing. Is that sort of the circumstance if you defy what they have requested of you?
So any disobedience, any civil disobedience is done or should be done with the knowledge of its consequence. Civil disobedience is not marching in a protest. Marching in a protest is marching in a protest. Civil disobedience is going out with the understanding that you are going to conduct yourself in a manner that is contrary to law, okay, because the risks of complying with the law have results that you feel are so important that they have to be stopped, and you are willing to interact with the criminal justice system to stop them. Okay. Most civil disobedience is sitting down, refusing to be moved, and being carted away. And generally, you get carted away, and they charge you with, they charge you with disorderly, or they charge you with trespass, or failure to obey a lawful order, or they charge you with all of that. But you don't, and I want to say this really quick, you don't win the fight in the street at that point. When you're in that Fourth Amendment bubble, that's not where you win the fight. You're in the First Amendment bubble, you're winning the fight. You're absolutely out there, you're doing it. But when you get into that Fourth Amendment situation, you don't win that fight in the street.
Right.
I raised my children this way. I told them, you never win the fight with the beat cop, with the street officer. You're not going to win that fight. You win the fight in court. That's where you win it, because all your rights return to you in court. In the street, your rights get pared down for the safety of the community and the officer and the public good. But once you're in court, all your rights attach and you are there, and you have the right to remain silent should you wish. You are innocent until proven guilty. All your rights return to you at that point. That's where you win your fight. So if you are going out to be civilly disobedient, or you are just going out to march, you are detained for any reason. You ask, am I being detained? If the answer is yes, you say, on what charge? They don't have to answer that. They don't have to tell you truthfully. They don't have to do any of that. But if they do detain you, don't resist.
Okay.
Never resist. Say, okay, understood. Just put your hands behind your back. Boom, boom, boom. Do it. But you say these words: I do not consent to a search of my person or my effects. I will not consent to, nor will I answer questions without my attorney present. And I invoke my right to remain silent. And then you are silent.
Okay.
No matter what is said. If they say, I got your mom on the phone. If you just talk to your mom, we'll let you go.
Okay, so can you
Silent.
repeat that? Can you bullet point that for us? If we get detained, am I detained? You ask, am I detained?
Sure. Am I being detained, or am I free to go? You can say it either way. Am I free to go, or am I being detained?
Okay.
If the officer says you're not being detained, turn around and walk away.
Okay.
There's
And
no
if
consequence. There's no value to remaining in that point. If that officer is not detaining you, leave.
Okay. And then if
Right there.
you are detained, the three things, just like really, really fast, like lightning rounds that you should be doing are.
Sure. If you're being detained, what are the charges? I
Okay.
do not consent to a search of my person or my effects. I will not answer questions without my attorney present. I invoke my right to remain silent.
Okay.
And then shut up.
Okay. Okay. Great.
You don't have to answer. You never have to answer. You never have to answer. It's contrary to manners. It's contrary to being polite. It's contrary to being friendly. It's contrary to explaining yourself. You don't win by talking to an officer who wants to arrest you. Your voice is working against you at that point.
Okay.
In the Fourth Amendment bubble that you are now occupying, your voice is an admission against interest. Whereas in the First Amendment bubble, your voice is a great statement of power and authority. But when you are being confronted, that's when you close down shop, and then you wait until you have your attorney present, all your rights returned to you, and you're good to go.
Okay. So our friend Casey asked if for any good reason they ask, may I search you? May I search you? Would a good response be, I don't consent?
I don't consent, period. No.
Okay.
I do not consent, in a loud and clear voice. Loud and clear voice. I do not consent.
Okay. Well, that was
I
easy.
do not consent to a search of my person or my effects. I will not answer any questions without my attorney present, and I do not wish to be questioned further. I invoke my right to remain silent. And then shut up.
Okay. Yeah, that is hard to shut up.
That's it.
That's hard.
That's
Okay.
the whole deal. They have to tell you. And here's another thing. Again, I'm going to repeat this. If you ask, am I being detained? And they say no, leave.
Walk.
Leave, walk, go. And no goodbye, see you, no snark, no nothing. I often try to educate young kids about this by saying it's like road rage. Somebody has just interjected themselves into your life. You don't owe them anything. Get away from them. So if an officer comes up to you and says, I want to do this, I want to see what's in your bag, and you say, officer, am I being detained? And the officer says, no, I want to see what's in your bag. Walk away. Walk away. Turn and leave. And if they say, come back here, no, you're not being detained. They've already interviewed you. Goodbye. That's it. But 9 times out of 10, they say, can I see some ID? Blah, blah, blah. Can I take a look in your bag? No, I don't consent to a search. Am I being detained? Not at this moment, but we want to talk to you about goodbye. Okay. Yeah, but we want to, it's like that great Bugs Bunny thing where, the roadrunners run by. Yep, that's it. You just leave. You just go.
No means no.
No means no.
No means
that's
no.
it. Okay. So that's where we kind of go. But it's really, really important that your folks know that once you invoke your right to remain silent and then you start speaking, it doesn't matter that you just invoked your right to remain silent. You're now speaking.
Right. Right. So
Okay.
stop
All
speaking.
right.
Yeah.
If someone says, you got to just sign here that I read you your Miranda rights, it doesn't mean anything. Don't worry about it. You got to sign here. No, I'm not signing. No. You don't even have to say no. Just don't move. Don't pick up the pen. Don't sign it. Because when your lawyer gets in, they're going to say, and the cop or whoever the processing agent is going to say, your guy didn't want to sign. And say, okay, great, give it to me. You walk in, the guy reads, the lawyer will go, okay, you can sign. You sign and say, thanks, get out. And then you talk to your client. All right. But you don't sign anything. You don't give a spit test. You don't give hair. You don't say, where are you going? What am I doing? Where was God? Not their business. They have no capacity to compel that from you at all. None. Zero. They either have probable cause to arrest you and they tell you what that is and they arrest you, or not. You're not there to have a conversation with them because they can't affect the change that you want. So they're not part of that equation. All right. So treat them as you would a stranger. If they're interacting with you, you clam up, you pull back. You're not going to win by explaining.
Right. Just don't interact. Okay, so we have one more audience question,
Sure.
and then we should probably let you go. I feel like we could do a whole part two. That would be
No,
like
I'm happy
get
to, as long as you people, I'm happy to come back for part two if you wish.
Yeah,
But
I would love to do a part two, honestly, and a 3 and 4. CJ wants to know, how does a contact list work on a burner? Should you not have one?
yeah, you don't have a contact list. What you do is in a burner, you type in the 3 or 4 numbers, right, that you're going to use, your lawyer's number, your best friend's number, whatever it is, and that's it. You don't put contacts in a burner phone. The burner phone you're going to throw away. So you don't want to tell people what you got on it. All right. So if you want to put your lawyer on speed dial, so all you have to do is push 1, your burner phone will do that. So you open it up, you push 1, you get your lawyer on the phone. You want to put your mom and dad on speed dial, do that, right? You push 2, there it is. That's it. You're not using it as a chat room. You're not using it as a walkie-talkie, so to speak. You're using it to shield your information from prying eyes, essentially. So you don't want to use a contact list.
Maybe we should all get walkie talkies, actually. That would make life
Yep,
easier.
it does.
So
It
in
works.
touch with everybody at lunches, we can have a burner phone in case we need to call you when we get arrested. And then we need walkie talkies to
Yep.
keep in touch with everybody. This is good. I'm going to go on a little shopping spree. Okay, this is excellent. Okay, so before we all disperse to our evenings, yes, we all heard you say there could be a part 2. That would be great. I would love that. I'm sure people have more questions about everything legal. But my question for you is, on the threshold of this big national March day,
Right.
at an inflection point in our history where we're really being morally tested, what
Right.
is, and you've told us such great things tonight, what is one more thing that you might say to us as we venture forth and
Be
sort
not
of
afraid.
be not afraid?
Be not afraid. It's said 3 times in the Christian scripture. It's said repeatedly throughout our history by secular and religious folks. It is the bedrock of all change. You can be frightened, but fear is different. You can be anxious, but fear is different. The biggest thing that a bully wants you to do is nothing. The biggest thing that an authoritarian wants you to do is nothing. And the best reason they can get you to do nothing is to make you afraid. And fear is why you comply in advance. And Professor Snyder says right up front in his brilliant book on tyranny, you open it up, first rule, do not comply in advance. Because why? You look at these great law firms and universities with all the brain power, all the experience, all the talent, all the money that they have, but they got afraid. And they did things that disappointed millions of diploma holders and millions of people that rely on counsel and tens of thousands of other attorneys all over the place. When you have the choice act in your best interest. If you think that is to be silent or to withdraw, that's fine. No judgment. But act out of the strength of your convictions, not out of the fear of retribution.
That is beautiful. Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Drew. I love this. Be not afraid. I would love to get at least a t-shirt, if not a tattoo of that. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, for watching, for your great questions. We will see you out there. Before we go, I just wanted to give a shout out to what our producer, Margaret, put in the chat. Wonderful,
Yeah,
Margaret.
thank you, Margaret.
Information. And thank you, Drew. About tomorrow, about the marches tomorrow, handsoff2025.com. I also have been driving people to 50501 on social media. They organize all these marches in the 50 states for one day, and they've been doing a tremendous job since the inauguration. And finally, if you're staying home because you have to, the app 5 Calls, if you can download it, will not only connect you with your reps, it will connect you by topic. So whatever you're feeling upset about, you can go by topic. It'll give you the phone numbers. It will give you the scripts. There are so many ways that you can stand up for your convictions. And one of them is what you have all done tonight, which is to show up here. So once again, thank you. Thank you for being here, Drew. Thank you so much for taking the time and your expertise. Thank you. Be not afraid, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.